Hey guys, so today we're going to learn how to use a triple beam balance. A triple beam balance is a really important tool for us in chemistry because it helps us weigh everything that we need to weigh. So this right here is a triple beam balance. And the first thing you need to know when you use a triple beam balance is it's not a good idea to move it around on the table a lot, okay, because that can mess up our measurements. So when you're using a triple beam balance, the first thing you need to check is over here on the right side of your triple beam balance, you need to make sure that the line that is on the beams, this part is the beams, the line that is on the beams is matched up with the 0. That way you know that you're at 0 grams and you can start to weigh something. So say for instance we wanted to weigh this rock. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put it in the tray over here. All right, so we put it in the tray. And then we want to start to use our masses or our weights that are right here on our 3 beams. And we always start, no matter what we're weighing, we always start with the hundreds beam, which is in the middle. That's the biggest one, because that's going to let us know whether we have more than 100 grams or less than 100 grams. So I'm going to move this over 1. Okay, so we noticed that the beams didn't move at all when I moved it. So I'm going to move it over again. All right, so now what this tells us, the fact that it just fell from the top to the bottom, tells us that we have more than 100 grams but less than 200 grams. So we're going to move it back over to 100. All right, and then we're going to go down to our next biggest weight, which is the 10 grams, which is in the back. And we're going to move it over until we get the same result from the 10 grams. So I'm moving it over to 70, 80, okay. So we can see that at 80 grams, it fell down. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to get this line that's on the beams over here to match up with the 0 again. All right, so right now we're below the 0, so we need to move this back to 70. So right now we have 100 on the hundreds mass and we have 70 on the tens mass. All right, so now we're going to go over here to the ones. All right, we're going to move it over little by little, until our balance starts to move. So as you can see over here on the right side, we're not quite lined back up with the 0 yet. So we're going to move what you're going to do is you're just going to move the ones place back and forth until you line up perfectly with the 0. And sometimes this takes a little bit of patience. You have to wait for it to bounce up and down a little bit. And see, now we are at 0. So, on our triple beam balance, we have 100 grams, 70 grams, and 9.2 grams. So when we are ready to find out what our total mass is, we have to add all 3 of those together. So that would be 179.2 grams. And when we're in chemistry, remember we measure everything in grams. All right, so I'm going to take this rock off. And now when you're done using a triple beam balance, it's really important that you move all of the weights back to 0. All right. So what if we had a powder or a something that was very fine that we wanted to weigh? Well, we would use this. This is what we call weigh paper. It's just like a little piece of wax paper. And what we do with this is we put it down on the balance. And before we do anything else, we have to weigh this paper, because if we want to know how much our powder weighs, we have to be able to subtract the weight of the paper. So I'm going to weigh the paper. It doesn't even weigh 1 gram. All right, but it's still really important that we write down the weight of our weighing paper. All right, so we matched up the line on the balance with the 0. This weighs about 0.5 grams. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take our powder that we're going to weigh out, some Domino's sugar. And I'm going to just put a little bit on the weigh paper. All right, and now we want to weigh how much sugar I've put on here. So I'm going to move this along here. Remember, we're going to move it back and forth, and it's going to take a little bit of patience. All right, but it matches up with 0. So we have 1.1 grams. So what we would do, remember our weigh paper weighed 0.5 grams. We would take 1.1 minus 0.5, and that would give us the weight of our powder, which would be 0.6 grams. All right, so then I can remove my weigh paper, and I can take my powder in the weigh paper like this, and I can move it somewhere else. All right, now the same thing goes for if you want to weigh a sample of liquid. You would take a beaker. This is a beaker. This is what it looks like. And it's for holding liquids. We don't usually measure with a beaker, but this is for holding liquids. And we would first weigh the beaker. So we're going to put the beaker on here. And remember, we're going to start with 100 grams. So we're going to move 100 grams over. 100 is too much. All right, so then we'll go to tens. We'll see 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. Okay, so 70 is too much. So we'll move it back over to 60, and then we'll come over to our ones place. We'll move our ones over, and then back over. Remember, this takes a little bit of patience. Sometimes you have to wait for it to bounce up and down a little bit until it stops moving. All right, so right now we have 60 on our tens beam, and we have 3.4 on our ones beam. So that's 63.4 grams. That's how much the beaker weighs. So 63.4 grams is how much the beaker weighs. Then we would take our sample of liquid. I have some water here, and we would pour it into the beaker. Okay, so we've got water in our beaker. We know that our beaker weighs 63.4 grams. So we have to adjust, okay? So we know it's gonna be more than 60. So we've got it all the way up to 80 now. Actually, I did something wrong there. We have to start with 100. So let's see, 100 is still too much. All right, so let's move it to 90 and see what happens. Oh, 100's not too much. I made a mistake. So we have 100. All right, so somewhere between 110 and 120. All right, and then so we have 100 on our 100 on our hundreds beam. We have 10 on our tens beam. So then we're going to move our one beam. Got to move it around a little bit. See where. See where it is. And remember, again, this takes a little bit of patience. We got to wait for it to line up, wait for it to stop moving. All right, so now it's lined up with the 0. So we have 100 on our hundreds beam, 10 on our tens beam, and 2.8 on our ones beam. So we have 112.8. But we have to remember that our beaker weighed 63.4. So we have to take our the weight of our beaker plus our water and subtract the weight of our water, or the weight of our beaker, in order to get the weight of the water. So 112.4 minus 60, or 112.8 minus 63.4 would give us the weight of our water. All right, so this has been how to use a triple beam balance, and if you have any questions, you need to let me know. This is a really important skill for us to have in our chemistry class this year, and it can be a little bit confusing when we're weighing by difference, when we're weighing a beaker, so you really need to make sure you keep track of everything you weigh, and that you make sure every time you're finished with a triple beam balance that you move everything back to 0, so that you don't ever get confused about what you're weighing or when you're weighing it. So have a great day.